Hello everybody, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be building the no-brainer frame and installing Mamba Stack and HDzero into it, and I'm going to show you how we do that and the different options there. So, the first step to assemble the no-brainer is we're going to take our mid plate here, and if I'm honest, I've already filmed this review, however, everything was out of frame, so we're going again, but I'll show you the process for installing the press nuts. So you just need a screw of any length, something with a good head that's not going to strip on you. And then if I look in my screw basket here, find ourselves a washer. So you get that washer, throw it on the screw, throw those two together, and then you just screw it into the press nut. You'll just hold the press nut there by hand, screw that down, tighten it down, and they'll just sit flush up against the frame just like that. So now that we've done that, we'll install all 6 of these press nuts in those locations. Very easy to see. Then the next step is to get our 16mm countersunk screws, and then we need our 4 locking keys here. So get the locking keys. They have a little notch on the end here. That notch goes into your mid plate, so just slide that notch in. Should just slip in nice and easy. If you are having some trouble doing it with your fingers, you can use a pair of pliers. Just careful not to scuff up the carbon here, because that'll make putting the base plate on a little harder. Throw those on. Get our bottom plate, squish that on top. Then we're going to get our arms, slide our arms in, butt them up against, get our countersunk screw here. The link to all of the hardware that I'm using here is in the description. The sizes and quantities are all there. Alright, so just put a screw loosely into there, get our second arm, put that onto here, then we'll screw that one in as well. Alright, now we've got those two through. Get our 10mm screw, which goes in the middle here, throw that one in, screw it up, and then we'll tighten that one up, which will hold those arms in place. Then tighten up our 2 outside ones here. And now we have 2 arms already installed. We'll just repeat the same process for these back 2. Now that we've got all those screws in, we'll get our stack screws next. So for HDzero here, I've got the 25mm stack screws. If you're just running analog, you can, with just a ESC and FC on the stack, you can just run 20mm. That works just fine, and that'll be the same thing for the standoffs. So just get a metal nut here, screw that down. And screw that onto the plate, and then we'll just repeat the same process for all 4 of the stack screws. Alright, now we've got all 4 of those down. We'll get ourselves a pair of chunky pliers. Hold that bolt, tighten that one up. All those installed. Next we'll just get our standoffs. Just screw those down onto the nuts, press nuts. Repeat the same process for all 4 of those. Alright, and then we'll of course would install our ESC FC in here. This is already pulled out from other builds, so it's all pre-soldered up. Throw that on top, and then we just get our top plate, and oh, it appears that I haven't pulled out top plate screws. Alright, so I actually forgot something, very important step. These tiny little rubbers that come in the box with your ESC, you actually need to put those above the metal nuts and below your ESC. Otherwise your ESC will actually hit the press nuts in the frame, and I've killed a couple ESCs that way. Obviously without it, that plug there would be hitting the frame, and so would down the back. For even more protection, I have actually had and put tape over these press nuts. Obviously this is not a big brainer only issue, the press nuts being in those positions, but it is something that you have to be aware of, so I just put these extra gummies, just a little bit more separation. Obviously the stack still fits on 25mm standoffs with those there. Even the other advantage is it keeps a little bit more airflow under that ESC. Yeah, anyway, get back to what we were doing. Alright, now we've got some stack screws. There's two different lengths. I either use the longer ones here, which are sort of there for 5.5mm arms, or I use these real short ones, which are motor screws that come with like 4mm arms. There's either one's the choice. I generally tend to use the longer ones when I'm installing on aluminum standoffs like this. It just means that they'll strip a little less easily. Same thing if it's a practice quad, I'll use longer ones, but most of my comp builds have the shorter ones to try and shave a little bit of weight, and I don't need the extra durability. Alright, now we have all four of those installed. That's our frame complete. So, strong frame here, 5.5mm arms if I'm not mistaken, 2mm plates, cross-linked carbon here to give that extra strength. Super nice, simple locking arm locking mechanism, super stiff, easy arm replacements. There's barely any flex this way, no arm wiggle this way. Like, just even on my quads, which I've flown, probably 1,000 packs on this frame, even some of mine that I've had since I first started flying it, zero wiggle. They just, never come loose over time. I mean, obviously a little bit, but nothing compared to any other frame, which I'm just so happy about. Yeah, I'm super pleased with this frame. Alright, on to the next portion, putting in HDzero. Alright, so I got my top plate off. Let's put a VTX in this. So unfortunately, if we look at the plug that comes with the HDzero straight from the factory, it is the opposite pinout to the Mamba flight controller. We plug this one in. We've got the pinout, we've got power on that side, but power on this side. Obviously the other one's running the other order. So that means that we've got two things we've got to do. We've either got to repin it or resolder. And I'll show you guys how I would do both of those options. So for repinning, I'm basically gonna take all of these out and I'm gonna put them all back in the right order. I generally flick up these little pins with a knife. Other optionally, I've done it with a pin previously, but I do prefer the Stanley Blade hobby knife here. So we'll just put it at the back of the white tab, lift under, slide under just so the blade is lifting that tab up, and then we can just sort of pull on that wire, and as the blade slides forward, that one slides out. And then we just repeat that process for all four of these tabs. Now we've got all four of them out. We will get, first of all, our red one here is the power. And if we look at the flight controller pinout, that one's got to go here on the left hand side. So we'll get that power, put that on the left side, plug that one in. These just slip right back in again. Then we'll put our ground next to it. Alright, we've got the ground in. Then we'll get our... This is transmit from the VTX, so that means that's got to go to the RX pin, which is the green one labelled on your wiring diagram, which will go into that 4th pin slot. And then we'll get the yellow one here, that'll go into our 3rd pin slot. So that's our TX, RX, power, ground, all wired up. So we can go and install that in the flight controller. By default, this flight controllers come with the bridge pad here, run for 9 volts. That's probably your best option for HDzero. Clean power from the pretty beefy 9 volt rig on here. That's how I've been running VTXs off that for a little while now, at least the week and a half that I've had HDzero. So now we've done repinning. Now the other option we can do is to resolder, and luckily for us, in the box there comes a 6-pin plug which has the air unit plug on the other end, which is the sort of the weird one for DJI. That one has the correct pin out already, so we can just throw that one into the flight controller, and now we've got our power, ground, TX and RX wires. So we can then get our VTX, show my soldering irons hot, get our pair of handy hands, great investment these, and then we can desolder the plug off the VTX. As you can see here, I'm having just a little bit of trouble heating up that and taking off that ground wire. I can help to either heat up the board with a hairdryer or just a little bit of patience, perseverance that I've done here. Alright, got that original plug off. So now I'll generally solder up this VTX. I'll disconnect that from the flight controller. Get that out of the way. Now we want all of these wires should be a nice length, and then we're basically just going to replace that plug that they already had on there. So we'll go power on the 1st pin, ground, and then didn't quite. Then we get the TX from the VTX, needs to go to the RX, which is going to be the green wire here. And then the white wire is going to be our RX on the VTX. So we can check our pinouts now. So plug this in down the bottom, and if we look at the pinout here, we've got our power on the closest pin running to the voltage on the VTX, ground next, then our white wire here is the TX wire from the FC that's going to the receive pad on our VTX, and then in opposite we've got the receive wire on the FC is going to the TX pad on the VTX. So now we got that wired up. Luckily these diatone ones have a very flat top on the FC, so you can actually just smash that FC down, twist up these VTX wires nice and neatly, run this at the back, throw that down on top, put that one there, put this camera mount on. The camera mount's not designed for this standoff size, but it was the only one I had handy that fit the Nano 90. Plug that camera in, and then we will just put our 4 nuts on top. Normally I would have this RX taped underneath my top plate like that, but I haven't got that right now because I just took this off another build. But either way, once that sits nicely, it now actually all just sits as a stack like that. And when we spin that down, secure RFC, you'll actually be able to see that the top plate here is actually wider than your HDzero VTX, providing protection from side impacts, meaning that your HDzero is completely protected inside underneath this top plate, especially with these knobs here. Something comes in, hits your arm, hits the side, comes down here. It's not even touch that VTX. However, of course, I mean, like any frame, it'll hit your ESC, but there's nothing that any width of top plate will do about that. Especially for the weight, this top plate is so protective of your HDzero. It's nice and strong. But yeah, so that's our physical install. Now we'll hop onto the PC and I'll show you guys my little tip and trick that I had to get working for Pitmode on a Switch, which is in the manual, but I found a little difficult to get working. Alright, so we're in here in Betaflight. I've got 4.4.2, 4.4 on here. Would be the same for anything. First thing I do, search up HDzero, if I can spell it correctly. Just search that one up. All VTXs for the Race V3. UART3 for the diatone flight controllers. Pick that, agree, save and reboot. Alright, so now we'll have MSP and DisplayPort and stuff. Firstly, to explain what I'm going to do, we've got 3 power levels here, 25, 200 and 0. So what we have is a CLI command. You'll be able to see here, I've got this VTX 02 whatever. These numbers seem to mean nothing, but if you look at the manual, it's got a really nice table under the VTX settings. We'll bring that up in a second, but that explains it. However, so each column here, this is, first column's your index, this one's the aux channel, so it's aux -1, so I've got it set on aux 3. So this is your channel, band and channel adjustment, so we don't really care about that. And then basically this is your power level, and this is the range of like the receiver range. So I want it to be Pitmode high on channel 3 on aux 3, so I'll have it set 1700 to 2100. So that'll be the high value for my 3-position switch on aux 3 is set to power level 3, which we just saw before is 0 milliwatts. And then for the rest of the range, I've got it set on 25 because I'm never going to use the VTX on anything other than 25 milliwatts. And then just for me, I have my failsafe on, or Pitmode on failsafe. It's just if my receiver gets disconnected or if I have a faulty antenna and I get stuck at the start of the race, I don't want to be sitting there unable to put it in Pitmode and just watching my VTX catch fire through the goggles. So those are the settings I have. I'm then going to take those and we're going to put them in Betaflight. Alright, so we're in Betaflight. We'll just Command V those into the CLI. I'll drop exactly what I've got here into the description, but you'll want to change probably for yourself depending on your aux channel, etc. So just click save, and that's it. That's all the HDzero Betaflight setup that you have to do. So it's editing Samuel here. I've noticed something, some weird behavior, and so there's two things you need to make sure that you have. Turn off VTX Pitmode here, have that not enabled, otherwise you will get some weird behavior. If you're getting weird behavior, check that. Also, you need to go into your ExpressLRS lure and change your power level to dash. Not 3, not 1, not 2, the dash. That way the ELRS lure isn't setting it to 25 milliwatts when you don't want it to. It's super easy, super simple. It's actually been a really seamless experience for me to putting HDzero on these builds. Anyway, thank you everybody for another great video. I'll see you again sometime.